we did our kickoff a year ago, will be a year ago, January, right? And it's one of those things where every time you do a kickoff, you deliver some great content and you deliver, whether it be skills training or knowledge or whatever, and then nothing. There's no follow-up. And I really wanted to follow up on something that I thought we did really well. And I was lucky enough to have the sales leadership. We have 3 key disciplines within our sales organization, probably similar to most everybody. Account executives, they're the ones out in the field selling. We have an inside sales organization. They're really sales development. They're really finding the pipeline, helping the sales reps move through the sales process, those opportunities. And then we have an SA team. Those are your demo jocks, right? But there are 3 key disciplines. So at boot camp, I put together, it was the new year, so we had a new pitch. And I want to do something different, right? ServiceMax, I should have told you this before. So ServiceMax, field service management solution. And back in the 2011, 2012, we were the pioneers. Nobody was doing field service management in the cloud and delivering that solution. So we were exploding, right, based upon that. And then, of course, like anything, when you start doing really well and other companies see that you're making money, they want in, right? And so all of a sudden, everybody was jumping in and trying to say they have a field service management solution, what have you. So fast forward 6 years later, and now it's highly competitive. It's not about, you can't just walk in the door and say, this is what we do, and if you want to be on the cloud, you're win. Boom, close the deal, here's where you sign. Using DocuSign, please, that would be great. But no, seriously, you wouldn't imagine a number of people that still, I say, hey, do you want me to sign that? And they go, yeah, can you sign it and fax it back to me or whatever? I say, what? Right? Okay, I am a DocuSign user. I will set it up and send it to you, just sign it. But anyway, so I didn't want to just have people learn the new overview pitch, right? And more importantly, I said, how can we make it so they're delivering that in front of customers in a different way? And so what we did is said, you know what, we're gonna do a skills training where they're gonna learn the new overview pitch, but they're gonna learn how to deliver it in a whiteboard session. And why was that important? Again, put my sales hat on where I was, right? When you're on a whiteboard and you're delivering and having a conversation, it's a lot easier to engage that audience than people watching words on a PowerPoint. Right? And I can stop, I can pause. I said, I can point to the whiteboard, I can talk about what they're doing and so forth. It's very engaging. And that's what all these people found. So just massive success of having this particular session in our boot camp. And thankfully, leadership saw the same thing because they saw this slide and they heard all the noise that was happening. And so what happened was leadership said, at the very end of boot camp, or of our kickoff, they simply shared with the fact that, hey, that whiteboard stuff that you did, and they did it as teams, so there was no individual thing. As a team, they put together the whiteboard. As a team, they presented the whiteboard. So the leadership said, hey, we're going to do a certification on on the pitch with using whiteboards, and we want everybody to get involved. And he pointed to me and he said, Bob, can we do that in SalesHood? And I said, absolutely, I'm on board, and we'll roll it out. So the good thing, the message there, the great thing is, VP of Sales has got SalesHood on the brain. That's what I want. That's important to me, right? So I went to leadership and I met with them and I said, look, I'm totally on board on rolling this out, but it's not going to be effective unless you all are on board driving it top down. So I need to know that you guys are going to be on board and push this, because this is not going to be something that happens over 3 months. We're going to roll this out, and we need to have it happen in weeks, right, over a course of time. Now, remember, beginning of February is when we had this conversation. Our end of quarter is the end of March, and you know how salespeople are about doing a certification the last 2 weeks of the quarter. Doesn't go over very well, right? So the third thing is what I talked to you about before, though. What's my win? Every time I think of delivering or rolling something out in SalesHood at all, or from an enablement perspective, I always try to think of what's the enablement win? What is on our agenda that we can possibly drive? And that is really the sales leadership. So the biggest challenge I have, I don't know if you guys are experiencing it and so forth, but if they're not on board it's always going to be a tactical thing. And they love it, and then they forget it. And Arthur and team knows everything I do, I try to drive leadership to saleshood. I want them to come to the realization of how valuable and powerful this platform is. So my focus was not, the focus was at the sales reps level, the SA level, the ISR level, in terms of who's going to actually get involved and do the actual tactical certification, get that. But my win, my focus was right here. I wanted to design a program, a certification that actually forced these folks to be involved all the way through. And I knew if they did, I'll start my own win, and they'll realize just how valuable this platform is and the other things that we can do with it in order to drive value. And I think I heard it in the last one. I'm totally on board. I know Intact talked about it in the last conference that we had, which is around sales coaching. And my company's on board now, and the leadership team in general just had an offsite to talk about how we need to get better at coaching at the sales leadership level. And I think Saleshood absolutely can help drive that. And this was an introduction of the opportunity for them to see that. Okay, so stars aligned in several ways with me rolling out this program, right? So first of all, I put my product management hat on and said, okay, I want to build a program, this certification, that I can tie to a theme. Our theme for our kickoff was Top Gun, but that was kind of the underlying theme. If I want gamification, I got to bring something even stronger, something that people can really sink their teeth in and get into from a competitive standpoint. So I said, wow, it's mid-February, and there's this thing called March Madness, probably the #1 sports activity, especially from a betting perspective. And it's actually known worldwide now that we have basketball players coming from all over the world to play in the NBA. So I said, great opportunity. And oh yeah, when I look at my bracket for my own March Madness, I go, wow, that aligns really nicely. I'll roll out brackets by discipline. And what are the brackets going to allow me to do? Well, first of all, I've now made it competitive. I've made it competitive regionally within each of the disciplines. So now I'm adding some dollars into just regional winners. I can start paying people just for winning within their team, right? Oh, but wait a minute, there's more. I'll pay you even more if you make it to the Final Four and you're either the winner or the runner-up, right? So now I'm paying them twice if they win. So now you're really incenting the salespeople that all of a sudden they don't really care about the end of quarter thing, certification thing. Bob keeps flashing dollar signs in front of me, and that's a good thing, right? But again, what was my win? The brackets allowed me to involve the sales managers because they had to choose the winners of each of their groups, right? So now they're involved in having to watch videos and the certification videos and presentations by their people. But then I involved the regional VPs had to be the ones that took those winners and decided within their discipline which one went to the Final Four. So now I've got my regional VPs involved, and then the global VPs of each of the disciplines had the responsibility of looking at the Final Four and choosing who the winner and the runner-up was. So this sort of program and the opportunity and use of the bracket concept from a gamification perspective really allowed me to make sure that the individual contributors were incented to do it. And it did help that they all had a ton of fun at the kickoff. I mean, I had 3 people went home from kickoff and immediately made their own video for me and submitted it, and they said, I can't wait to win the big money. I hadn't even rolled it out yet. They didn't even know what the hell they were doing. But they just heard, and one guy wasn't even in sales. He was in services, and he was so excited that not only did he submit the pitch, but he said, and by the way, I think my pitch is better than the product marketing VP that came up with the pitch. And let me tell you why. And I go like, okay, you could take that over there. That's fine. But I mean, so I had this excitement out of boot camp or out of kickoff, and I had a chance to make it keep rolling. And that was my whole point to you at the very beginning. When we don't do that, when we let time elapse, what happens is that energy, that sort of excitement, if you will, is gone. And so we were able to play with that, but put it in this sort of format that allowed people to stay excited, want to do it, because look at the certification, I was really clear. It should only take you 3 to 5 minutes of what you're doing. I don't want the full-blown pitch. I just want you to show you could do it. And so first of all, when I met with leadership, I had to make sure that the money that we were willing to do, so I presented them with what I thought should be, right? And then they said, we don't have that budget. So, okay, so the new TV or new car is not what we're giving away. So I think I paid $50 to every regional winner. That was you just won your team, right? And then I paid the ultimate winner got 250. Additional 250, and I think it was 125 or something to the runner-up. And then, of course, I'll steal the thunder a little bit. And of course, so there was 3 disciplines, right? 2 out of the 3 disciplines decided they couldn't choose a winner. So I had to split the money, and there was 2 winners. So just, yeah, so funny. But anyway, so, you know, the most important thing was make sure everybody tied the theme of the kickoff to this that was going on, right? I purposely only made 1 certification per discipline. Why was that? Anybody guess why I did that? Crowdsourcing. I wanted everybody to be able to see everybody else's in that discipline if they wanted to. And the cool thing was a rep who reached out to me and said, hey, my ISR wants me to watch their video. Can you give me access? And I just had to, you know, because they don't know how to search, right? DocuSign pushing content because they don't know how to search, right? Because they could have found it themselves. But anyway, so I did that. So nothing really special here other than this. So I'm a real anal guy. That's my engineering, product management type background and so forth. So I give them a pretty good description, make sure they understand what they're doing. I always try to give them guidance. You know, here it was, you know, the guidance here was the messaging session that we had and the things that we were trying to point out. The main thing was no more than 3 messages when you're up and presenting, right? Because nobody can retain more than that, right? And then make sure they had the instructions. All the team stuff here, I love the fact that I could bring the teams in by manager. Didn't have to have this massive thing. But let me show you the instructions, because they're probably what I think one of the most valuable tools within Saleshood is actually the scorecard. So first, this is the video of the actual VP of product marketing doing the PowerPoint pitch. Remember, that was they have to go do that interpretation of that on Whiteboard. So I reminded them of that. They wouldn't have to find it. But you notice I put this slide up front because I wanted them to see the gamification. I needed them to know what the end game was. It's about making it to the Final Four, being a winner or runner-up. So I put that in front of the video on purpose, right? But the scorecard, guys, and I've talked to Saleshood about enabling the scorecard even in a huddle, because I think it's when somebody's going through a huddle and learning something, there's the scorecard can become valuable at all because there's things within the huddle that you can do that the certification you can't and so forth. But the scorecard is where you remind people of what it is that they need to do. These are the key points. When you're in front of the client, these are the things that you have to be able to do. Confident opening, have a lot of energy, be passionate about what you're talking about, right? Make sure you have relevant stats, like the stuff that DocuSign came here and we were all like, what? That's great. But then the other thing I liked about the scorecard, where it helped me is, imagine, I'm sure you guys do, who's done a certification in Saleshood? The biggest thing about the certification, when they rate one another, when the peers rate one another, anybody get anything less than 90%? Right? Right? They all rate each other high. Man, that was fantastic. And then I come in and I say, wow, you got 3 things to work on, and I gave you a 70. Good luck. No. But it's our job, right? I mean, it's our job to be real. We're there to promote them to be better, right? A pat on the back is great, but it's our job to make sure they're better. So I anticipated I anticipated the individuals rating each other the same. More importantly, the managers having difficulty rating their people differently. But the scorecard is where you can bring in cool things that help them differentiate somebody that did a good job and hit all the marks. I contrast it to gymnastics, right? Or any sport where there's these things that you have to do. You have to do a double flip. You have to do, a back handspring or a pike this or something. And they're just checking you off, right? And so forth. But then we can bring in things that speak to creativity and legibility, right? And I made sure the managers were really clear that that's where you're going to differentiate and give credit to somebody that they just didn't hit the points, but they got creative in what they did. You would not believe, based on just creativity alone, I never had one presentation, right? There were over 70 people that did a certification. Not one of those certifications looked identical to the other one, and they actually could have just copied one that was from the boot camp, and they didn't do it. I had one person that actually found an animation tool and animated the whole thing and did the narrative over it. But it sparked them to knowing that they were going to be scored on creativity. It just had people thinking outside the box, doing things differently. And of course, legibility, boy, I tell you, there was a lot of scoring differences that could happen there. But I mean, I would be one of those people where I just don't write well enough to where people can even read it. But I just can't just emphasize enough that the scorecard helped me to make sure that it would create differentiation specifically for the managers, the regional, and the global VPs. Okay, so I don't know if there's any other questions in regards to this, but this was only to get to the Final Four. Again, like I told you guys, I needed to make it easy for the people that I want to win, the people that I want when they experience Saleshood. Their experience is like, wow, this was easy. They came in there and the experience that I wanted them to have was the feedback, which was easy. I went in, they loved watching the videos. I actually added them to all the regionals. So if they wanted to go watch, and they didn't, no surprise, right? But they had to watch here. So in terms of everything I did, in terms of this gamification, I mean, it was crazy successful. So much that two regional VPs came up to me and said, can we do the same thing? But I do want them to learn how to do it and deliver it in PowerPoint, right? Which I was kind of like, oh, I'd rather they not. But I said, yeah, look, if you guys want to do it, I can set it up. Because ultimately, once I knew what they wanted to do, as my customer, it was easy to pull this together, and it was really about the planning and just knowing what you want to do and what your target is. And again, there was the certifying everybody and everybody feeling good about it, but for me, it was presenting an experience to a leadership team that I need to do everything I can to get them into Saleshood. And Arthur and team are helping me to do more in that area to really make it valuable.